I promise. This is the most fun you'll ever have.
Can't wait. Can't wait. But thank you for the steer of the questions. That was a big help.
You're going to see there's going to be so many questions and people are going to be inspired.
Fantastic. I tried to pass it on to a colleague, but the rabbi wasn't having that, you know. So
no, we need you. We need the CFO. Guy writes the checks.
Not today, let me tell you. Not anymore.
Okay, we're live on Facebook, and I see that we are recording.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar. In many ways, COVID-19 has turned our lives upside down. For many, it has brought new challenges that one would never have expected just over a year ago, including financial. But as we know, every challenge creates opportunities. Maybe this is the time that we should be looking for opportunities to turn the darkness into light. Many people have talents they're not even aware of, that they've not needed to reveal, but maybe now is the time. Tonight, we're going to hear a story from a thriving entrepreneur, Orit Taback, about how she created a business from home. She started her business from her garage and today sells all over the country. We will also hear from Clive Spitz, the CFO of lending at Standard Bank. He will discuss the second stage of a business, the banking side. I'd now like to call on the famed Ilana Africa to interview our two guests tonight. Over to you, Ilana.
Hi, it's only a privilege to host this evening, and I must say we are just lucky and blessed to have, throughout COVID and lockdown and in these interesting times of our new average, to have the privilege to host these evenings to inspire, and you just said it, to bring light. So Orit and Clive, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourselves so that we can have this discussion. Clive, I see that you've already made our first webinar laughing mistake to mute yourself. So this is not that kind of discussion. It's one where we're going to be engaging. Okay.
Fantastic. I look forward.
So a warm welcome to everyone who's already logging on. In fact, our title for this webinar was COVID Times and Starting a New Business. And even if you are watching this and you're not starting a new business, but you need some inspiration from people who have, and also from our expert who is in the banking sector, whether it is about lending or just information, I think this is definitely a chat for you. So first of all, a warm welcome, Orit and Clive. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thanks for having us.
Only a pleasure. Orit, I'm going to ask you a question, which I didn't even line up to ask you, but before the webinar started this evening, we were talking about it. COVID has been hard, and you're in a business. You are a very beautiful woman, a sole proprietor, someone who's out there making, and you are creative with your hands. And here comes this nasty germ and virus, and it takes over. How's business?
Yeah, so we've had to adapt. You can't stick to the old ways. The clients need new things. The clients' needs are different. So we've had to adapt. And all my colleagues who've succeeded through this have all adapted to this. The caterers, the supermarkets, everyone's adapted to the new market, has done very well with this.
It's interesting that you say that some of them have done very well, because COVID has come to definitely teach us lessons. And so when we're talking about new businesses, I want to start with this. When I read your story, Orit, I was just so inspired. You know, we all have something to give, whether it is that you know your talent or you are ready to discover your talent. Tell me about your business. I read your biography. It was a short and lush version of what you do. And I was just so inspired that something that you learned from your home and from your mom has become something that has allowed you to earn. Tell us about what you do.
So funnily enough, the business didn't start as a business. It started as a hobby. It started as something fun. I was sharing what I was doing, what I was baking at home, on the internet, on the Facebook, on, if you remember, BlackBerry Messenger, that status. And that kind of, I'm not even sure how, kind of snowballed into this. I had a stint at Josie Blue. And then I realized, you know, I'm good at this. I'm having fun with this. Why don't I do this for myself instead of doing it working for others? which is what I did. I know Chaya said I started in my garage. I actually started in my kitchen at home. And every night I put my kids to bed, sterilized the kitchen top to bottom, needed to make everything parv because I wanted to, I want to be able to sell my stuff as parv. And work through the night. And in the morning, my domestic worker, I mean, she couldn't wait for me to finish with this, what she thought was a hobby. She was like, seriously, enough already. Like, you wreck this kitchen every single night. And long story short, here I am now. I must just say that don't underestimate the support of friends, the support of the community, because that is what helped me to grow my business. Because I would go onto Facebook and I would go onto my WhatsApp and I'd tell everyone, I'm making challahs this week and I've got these flavors, who wants? And almost every single week, I worked to capacity, because friends are amazing and friends talk about you to their friends and friends are forgiving. So when you mess up, which you do in the beginning a lot, they'll tell you, it wasn't great this week, what happened? And then you kind of use that feedback to perfect yourself and to correct mistakes.
I love what you're saying about how forgiving those are that you choose. And I'm going to speak about that shortly around mentorship and staying motivated in a business environment, because you're going to need your support system, especially if you want to start a new business in COVID, in lockdown, in our new average and new normal. And so, Clive, I think it's your turn to chat. When I see someone in banking, I get very excited because I think of money. And so I'm just going to start with banking questions, because you work in lending and you understand people's needs when they come knocking on your door, asking for something, because that is our means. We need money, even though it doesn't make the world go round, but to start a business sometimes. And so in this difficult time, to even make money or to even hold on to it, how likely are banks keen to grant us loans?
Thank you, Lana. And again, thank you to Rabbi Masinta for having me. And Orit, I eat your rogalach, and I'm a big fan. So it's an honor and it's a privilege. Just a quick disclaimer, Lana, if I may, these are my personal views as a professional within the banking sector, not necessarily of the bank itself. And I'm not providing any financial advice, but with those disclaimers out the way, an incredible story, Orit, and certainly very inspirational and demonstrates your courage at these very difficult times. But to answer your question, Ilana, I think let's just consider for a moment what banking is. You're asking me if the banks, got appetite for lending at this stage. If we consider what a bank is, we take investment from our shareholders, and we take deposit from our clients like yourselves. And we have to safeguard the capital of those deposits, and we need to give you a return on those deposits. And then we are very heavily regulated by government, by the South African Reserve Bank, who do an incredible job. But, they require capital adequacy. We need to ensure that we're holding enough capital that when a depositor comes and wants their money and they want their return, we're able to meet those requirements. But in turn, to generate that, we have to unlend those funds in a responsible and in a risk-managed environment. So absolutely, if we stop lending, there's a core part of our business that we're not performing, and that would leave us quite destitute. So we absolutely got appetite for lending, but it needs to be responsibly done. We need to manage the risk. And certainly in these times, you see it, where there's collateralized type lending, like a home loan, low interest rate environment. Today, for example, MPC announced that repo rate will stay flat at 3.5%, which is like the lowest we've seen in decades. Really, there is opportunity, and people are certainly taking advantage of that.
Well, people are taking advantage of it. And you just mentioned that the interest rate is really low. And so even though the banks are safeguarding money, and so Orit, soon I'm going to ask you this question. I want to know whether one can start a business without having to knock on the doors of banks or on close relatives to ask for funds or capital. I know that the screening process, Clive, is almost impossible. In order to lend money at the moment, even though it looks so favorable and it is a buyer's market, or you think, you know what, I've got a little bit saved, I want to start a new business and I'm going to go and knock on their doors, it is almost impossible to get money at the moment. Is that a fair approach, or how surely the loopholes? I mean, how do you show the bank that 3 months bank statements at the moment is not enough, and that over a year you can produce evidence that you're the right person and that you need money.
Yeah, thanks, Ilana. Again, to show up to the bank, I think we can probably break it down into two particular points. I don't think there are any loopholes per se, but firstly, touching on the principles that I think that are critical. You've got to know what you're solving for. What's the gap that you're trying to achieve as the customer coming to the bank, and then looking at your future opportunity. Then in turn, you need to know your customers. You already touched on it, what her customers are looking for and how it's changing. And you're never too large or too small to do customer testing and understanding that. You come into the bank for funding. You're not coming to pay yourself. Your customers are doing that by, buying your products. And at the end of the day, you therefore need to understand what they're requiring from you to keep a sustainable business. So that's quite critical. The bank is there to help you scale, to help you grow. And when organic growth has overtaken you, to help you keep growing. So I think that's critical. Around how to tell your story, I think that's very important, because you need to be realistic and truthful. We're going to be asked to back it up at some stage. Your results need to be factual, and your forecasts, the assumptions need to be pretty watertight. So bulletproofing facts and really know it like the back of your hand, I would suggest, and make it easy to digest. Take it seriously and formally. Have your elevator pitch, have your marketing and your finances on hand, and safeguard your position. Be gracious to suggestions and input, but safeguard where you're coming from. And different to a bank, perhaps to an equity play, is that the bank's very interested in your cash flow, not just your profitability. Whereas you're going out for equity, they're very interested in profitability alone. So, a few points around loopholes, what we consider, I suppose, when looking at it practically, there are 4 components. I can look at firstly financial. Do you have skin in the game? Are you investing in this business? Are your projections that you've put forward realistic? Your ability and your willingness to carry and service that debt. Your assets in the business, are they collateral? So I think those are the key financial high-level points that I would like to bring your attention to. Then management, the profile of the owners, their financial acumen, their track record, their technical skills and qualifications, those things all come into play. Then your overall market risk, you consider the industry itself that you're in, the location, your competition, your barriers to entry. And then lastly, which is very critical, is your credit risk, your tangible and intangible collateral, your personal assets, and your credit scoring, your levels of debt and your payment history. So I think you need to really show up with all of this, and the bank statements and the financials as well to support all of that. I hope that gives a bit of context to really what the banks are looking for.
It does. And if your accountant is late with your management statements, then you wait longer. So I hear you. But getting back to everyone who's just joined us, a new business. We're talking about COVID times and starting a business. And our 2 experts, Clive, thank you so much for joining us, CFO of Lending Standard Bank. And today he's speaking in his own capacity. And then Orit Taback from Orit's Bakery, who comes up with the most delicious treats. And immediately I think, Clive, if I'm not a candidate for the support from a bank, and I wouldn't do well with my repayments, and perhaps I need to start a business without knocking on the bank's doors because I might not be able to pay back the money, literally. Orit, I want to turn to and I'm inspired by how you started. It didn't start with having to borrow lots and bags of money. It started small. And so I want to go through practical examples of getting started. I mean, Clive just unpacked it with market research and all kinds of things. But let's say you are a housewife, or you are someone who's trying to discover your talent, and you want to start simple and really at the beginning stages. Take me back when you just started. Did you need the funds, and how did you start from small, growing it to your empire?
Thanks, Ilana. So first of all, what I tell, because I've had a lot of people phoning me and they want to start the food in the food industry, they want to sell this. Some of them won't even tell me what they want to sell. And they straight away tell me, where can they get money from? They need to build the kitchen, and they'll build it in their house. They're talking about converting garages. And my advice to anyone out there, if you want to start in your kitchen. And don't keep it a secret, because if you keep it a secret, nobody's going to know about your product and you won't be able to sell it. And before you even, it's like to take a loan, even from family members, never mind from a bank or from, organizations like Project Natan. You really have to have a plan on how you're going to pay it back. And it can't be this beautiful plan you've got in your mind. You've actually got to test it and see, is this product going to sell? Am I going to make money? And am I going to be able to pay back whatever it is, whatever loan that I take? So step one is start at home. If it's in the baking, it could be in woodwork, it could be whatever you're doing. Start with whatever you've got. I'm a huge believer in that. Even, when I started, my products go in the freezer and I needed labels. And the only labels you can buy for your regular home printer are those tower paper labels. You put that sticker on and it bleeds. So in the beginning, I got a good printer, which are, whatever printer you get, they pretty much have a muchness in price-wise. I got those tower labels and I got a whack load of those big sticky tapes. And I would stick that paper sticker on, and with sticky tape, I would laminate each sticker. It took me hours. But I wasn't going to go and invest in a label printer like I've got now, or invest in the labels that I get professionally printed, until I knew that this line was actually going to make money. So number one, start with what you've got, get creative with what you've got. Thereafter, you can borrow money from, for me, it was my father and really, you've got to bring God into the picture, because for me, it was my father. For the next person, it can be, anyone. It could even be the bank. It could be Project Natan. It could be any, my father picked up the phone and he said to me, Orit, I can see what you're doing. I can see that it's doing well. And he gave me 100,000 rand. He said, just go build yourself a proper kitchen with and it's not a lot of money to build a professional kitchen, but just take that next step. And then once that was paid off, then I won the AutoJet competition, and I won an interest-free loan from Project Natan. Again, you can't just take that money, and thank God, Project Natan, really, they make you prove that you've got a plan on how you're going to make this money back. And I've really used and taken advantage of whatever the community around us offers us before I turn to the bank to buy my first truck now.
So I love what you're saying, from the point where you say work hard, and then when people see that you are doing and you are really putting in the hours, then they come with different kinds of support. And a lot of us can say, she had a dad that helped her, but that is not the case. In fact, you want to say put in the hours. There's many books written about this, about how to wake up and do a 4-hour work week, and how you need 10,000 hours in order to become the expert. And so I think it boils down to putting in the hours and showing everyone that you can do this. I want to get back to the question around COVID and how COVID has affected your business. And I'm speaking specifically about someone who is watching this video and who feels that they really have something to give and they want to do something unique in a pandemic. What would your advice be to them? Because here's the truth. COVID and lockdown came to reset a lot of things. And thinking out of the box, you might as well start a new business. Because Orit's Bakery is not the same as it was 8 months ago. You had to have a different plan. It's almost like starting a whole new project. And so what would your advice be to someone who is starting a business now?
My advice would be, look around you. See what the gaps in the market are. See what people's needs are. So for us, for example, we went from catering, supporting the caterers and basically supporting the caterers. We were the backup bakery for whatever you found in functions, to everyone doing these drive-by functions, and they needed individually wrapped products. So we stopped, we weren't supplying to the public before. And now we've created a price list for the public who are hosting their own functions. And they can order from us these packs, and obviously it's on a smaller scale. So when I say we thrived, we thrived under the circumstances.
Yes.
Like really, thank God, nobody lost their jobs. And that is a huge, for me, that was huge, because it was important for me that these people that helped me grow this business to what it is, that they could, that they had security, job security. So it was all about finding out what do people need and how we're going to supply to them. And even though it goes against, like right now, we're busy doing our annual meeting, the beginning of your meeting. And we've got our long-term plan, which is actually, well, should we say that's going there. And right now we're doing our COVID plan, which is working like this. So it's absolutely not in line with what we, where we see ourselves long-term, but it's definitely going to be what's going to keep us going through this.
Clive, I have a question around that, because even a Orit's plan looks different in COVID and in a pandemic than what it does in, let's call it the old normal, because our lives have changed. And so if we do have, and this is a discussion that we had last week in this space, we talked about a second, we are in the second wave now, and thank God we're sitting here because we are surviving it. But they're talking potentially about a third wave. And then if this vaccination plan, I speak under correction, does not work, there's a fourth wave. And so from the bank's point of view, do you think it will get easier to borrow and easier for banks to lend money? Is this the new normal, or after the pandemic, we'll be free and we can just ask and we'll get?
Very difficult to say, if I can break it down into perhaps two components, the impact that we've seen to our client base in some points, already touched on it, and, whether people have furloughed or retrenched their staff and just to survive the business, or whether they've taken reduction in working capital to keep going. What I think's been critical for us is to partner with our customers through this difficult time. And I think that's what may result in the end us retaining those customers. You spoke about the light in the beginning. There's tremendous opportunity in this very difficult time too. And if you're really there for your customers, that'll enhance that partnership, and you take care of business with a long-term view. Perhaps you have to sacrifice on margin today, and for yourselves, you can negotiate better terms or discounts. All of this in the long term will perhaps and hopefully benefit you. But I think to answer your point around where the banks stand on it, I think today as we stand, things are very, very difficult. And I think we see our customer base really struggling on it. But, I think opportunity lies there in the longer term. And I think what we've really tried to do is partner with our customers. We've taken a tremendous hits, as with every business in this environment. And certainly, there's a lot of IFRS implications to what we have to do in terms of raising impairments and the like. We saw a 72% drop in our headline earnings, in our results to June in the 6 months, which is a record for us, really, to see such a difficult drop. But I was discussing this with a friend, and he came with an analogy around a porcupine in the extreme winter. And what do they do in the extreme winter? Because, normally they prick each other and they harm each other. But in the extreme winter, if they don't nest together, there's the risk of paying to gain warmth from each other. But if they don't do it, the result will be fatal. And I think that's the approach we've had to adopt, and we will continue to adopt. We're going to partner with our customers. We've offered payment moratoriums, payment holidays, 3 or 6 months or longer. Again, up to results in June, we gave over 100 billion in payment relief. Government has come with SME guarantee loans. We hold the largest market share in that space to try and revive and sustain business. So, we really feel that we need to partner with business. So at the end of this, we've got each other still, because we won't survive without our customer base. And hopefully it's a mutual feeling.
I hear what you're saying in terms of customer and support. And so my next question is quite practical. In this time, I've learned of 2 friends who had to liquidate their business. And as sweet as liquidation might sound to someone who wants to save their own livelihood, it was a terrible, drenching, really hard process to go through. And so what can we, because we don't all bank with Standard Bank or people that have our best interests at heart. I mean, how can we safeguard or negotiate with our bank in order for them not to take away everything that we own? What if you were granted the loan, but you're unable to pay it back?
Yeah, I think that the first, probably most important thing is to be open and discuss this with your bank. I think to keep it behind closed doors until the last minute leaves the bank in a precarious position as yourself. I think you have to be able to open and to have those discussions with the bank to ensure that everyone's aligned and that where possible, we can come up with a plan and a workable solution. Whether it's an extension on payment holidays, or whether it's a further advance, or whether, we can relax some, some caveats that are in the loan agreements. So the primary point that I want to make is that have an open and honest discussion with the bank. Again, we do see our success very much linked to those of our customers. So we don't want to have a view whereby we're saying, well, that erodes our profitability or our margin. It's going to. And by losing that customer, you stand at losing, you've got more risk at hand. At the end of the day, we need to safeguard that capital, going back to my first example around deposited funds that we take. And we need to ensure that it's safe. And the best way to do it is to ensure that our customers that we lend to keep going with their businesses. In terms of liquidation, there's no generic answer to that. There's no silver bullet there. I'm certainly no expert in that, but I guess the best piece of advice would be to get the correct advice. It's a permanent decision, and therefore it's a critical decision. And it may be expensive in the short term, but it may save you in the long term to get the right solid advice from whether it's a business rescue practitioner or whoever the legal authority may be. These are often legal terms that really need that type of expertise.
Right. Orit, earlier you talked about your father, and I mean, I love my dad. And so we love their advice and their input and their support. And so I'm almost speaking from a point of view where people are saying, oh, well, I don't have that kind of support. How do you stay motivated, and where does your mentorship come from? And also, I want to ask a practical question. How long did you have to run your bakery before you paid yourself your first salary?
Okay, so let's start with the first question. Mentorship is key over here. So I started off with Orit. I signed up with their mentorship program. Because then you just kind of, they match you up with a very experienced businessman or woman in your field. And as your business develops and grows, because obviously, business, you just started, and it kind of takes on its own journey. And then you realize, hang on, I'm doing retail more than I'm doing wholesale or whatever it is. And then they'll hook you up with the right kind of mentor. But now I've moved on to, I leech onto any successful businessman or woman that I see, and they're very giving. And even some of my clients, I'll find them, and we've had meetings which had nothing to do with the business between us. We were discussing business. We were discussing, systems and how to run a business and what works and what doesn't. And, and I've learned so much from my clients. Family members, you just phone them, and people are very, very happy to, to share their advice. I've even opened my books up to some people that I trust, and I say, help, is this what a financial statement is meant to look like? Help me. And they're really, really amazing. So really, and there's lots of mentors out there. You don't have to have your father, you don't have to have your uncle, you don't have to have a cousin. You can go to an organization like Orit. You've just got to open yourself up to it, really. If you find a wall in front of you and you're hitting it, it's because you're not open to a solution. Really, if you're open to a solution, it just comes, it just happens. Your second question? I can't remember.
The second question was, how long did it take before you said, cashing in, taking my first salary from Orit's Bakery?
A real salary, because you take every month. You get, this profit, and you pay your suppliers and you whatever. A real salary about 5 years in. But from day one, I was able to draw some money out. There was always an element of reward. And that's important. It keeps you motivated.
I can't help but thinking, because you talked about being open to the solution, and I'm thinking of the light and darkness. I'm thinking about how in darkness, how most of us will just see darkness. I think of darkness, and how most of us will just see the curse. I think of how in a pandemic, even though you have a talent and you're so motivated, you perhaps had the lending from the bank, you had the right support around you, but still your outlook on life is just darkness. How do you think are we able to see light during this time? Because I imagine that there's a lot of people watching, and we all have a talent, no matter how small you think it is, and they just don't know how to see the light.
So, okay, I'm going to bring, I actually just learned something recently, which kind of, like my aha moment. There was a Jewish philosopher and ethicist from the 11th century, and he said when a person's like looking for a career, and in the 11th century, we weren't talking about law school accountants, we're talking about this, a person's going to go and look for how they're going to earn a living, and they don't know where to begin. You don't know where to begin. You're kind of lost. So he says there's a few questions that one needs to ask themselves to try and find what it is that's actually going to get them up in the morning and want to do what and actually earn a living. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but the first two, which I think are very relevant, is number one, see what you're good at. If God has given you gifts, chances are he wants you to use them. And if you and also chances are if you're good at something, you're really, really going to enjoy it. So look at what your natural talents are. Look, what am I good at? What are my strengths? Look at that. And see how you can use it. Then the next thing you've got to ask yourself is, what is needed around me? It's not by chance that you are where you are. God placed you where you are, and that's because you've got something to contribute to wherever you're at. So if you live in Alaska and you're trying to sell cubed ice, you're going to fail dismally because it's not what they need there. You need to look around you and say, well, I live wherever you live, wherever it is in Johannesburg. What is it that people around me need? And combine that with what you're strong at. And it's kind of a winning formula.
I love what you have said, and I can't wait to read more about that philosopher that talks about all the different points and how to use our talents for good, because that's one way of seeing light, and that's what we believe, during this time, that this pandemic has been brought so that we can learn new skills and learn different things. If it wasn't for this pandemic, we wouldn't be having these conversations, and I wouldn't meet half the people that are here. And I definitely wouldn't have met Clive, because I don't think he would grant me a loan. So Clive, what advice do you have for the ordinary person? And the reason I say that is because, a lot of banks has got either private banking or they've got a wealth section. It's almost like they cater for LSM 8 to 10 in terms of their lending. You have to wear a suit when you walk in. And so I'm talking about the ordinary person. Is the bank the right place to stop when you need advice around the bank and money? Is there someone that can help you if you're an entry-level shopper?
Yeah, Ilana, I think it's a great question, because I think, one of the things I've always loved about Standard Bank is that we cater across all segments, all sectors, and a full service banking offering. And I think there's really some credit to be had for that, in the sense that, it's a one-stop shop. And to the point of arriving in a suit, I think things are changing in a large way. If you heard our CEO, Sim Shabalala, last year at our results presenting, that we're evolving into a platform type approach. We're really looking to reach our customers and just make lives far more synchronized, far more connected to each other with ecosystems and the like. We're really on an incredible journey ourselves. But that being said, we're not the only solution. So, depending on where you are in your business cycle, whether you need angel investment or whether you need venture capitalists, micro lenders, it's all available, at different costs and different requirements. And I think it very much varies depending on where one is in their business cycle. At Standard Bank, I think for this small business type of thing, or even, reasonable sized business, we have a virtual environment currently called Enterprise Direct, where we have bankers who are able to support you of all small business needs via telephone, email, social media. It's all available. I'm happy to share that. I think you can. Enterprise Direct is really it's a new innovation in terms of the way we're engaging under this environment, and I'm happy to share the details at the end of this discussion with you, so that you can share it broadly with certainly our customer base, or our potential future customer base, and certainly your listeners. But I think Orit also touched on a lot of things. Orit, incredible organization. Project Natan are incredible. There's the Geshe Fund. And then I have to mention Rabbi Masinta. He's a brand of his own, with Rabbi Masinta's network and what he can do to help people. It's truly remarkable. So those would be my pieces of advice.
While I have your attention, and I know it's not like you're head of digital in that, but I'm curious about online banking. And, a lot of marketers at the moment, they're directing people to online. I worked with a brand today, and the first thing they say is, digital is not the way, it's the only way. So a lot of people and marketers, and I'm sure Orit, your business as well, you are able to shop online, or we can place an order without even having to see you. And so I'm just curious, from the banking side, can you still, because before COVID, if you went online, they would say, for a loan, click here. So it was almost like it was easier to access money. Is that still the preach, or are they moving into a stage where they go, no, we actually not interested in, we actually just want to get back on our feet. Does banking have the same approach as other businesses that goes, let's just hold back a little bit?
Look, I think banking doesn't necessarily have that privilege. I think that the world of banking is evolving so quickly, and the competition is really very, very strong, certainly in South Africa. I'm always amazed how far we are with our banks compared to international banks whenever we've traveled. It's really, truly incredible. And, our digital platforms are world-class. They top rated on certainly, and I can speak for Standard Bank, on the iStore platform and Android. We're close to a 5-star rating. We've got incredible digital offerings. It's certainly something that works better for us as a bank to have a digital offering, and for our customer base, to be able to be accessible any time of the day, any day of the week, and that you can have a full service banking offering. It really speaks to people. But, referring back to our journey now, banking enables. It's the platform that underpins all forms of transaction, and that's where we're moving to. To quote Sim again, we don't want to just be a shop in the mall. We want to be the mall and have a shop in the mall at the same time, but enable the whole platform of ecosystem of business and transacting to take place.
In summary, Clive, how do we sign up? Do we go to the website? How do we become part of the Standard Bank family?
Okay, so I've got some details. I think absolutely you can go to the website, but in this discussion, and I think it's critical that we support small business, and we want to see small business succeed. We know how important that is for our country, and our motto is Africa is our home and we drive her growth, and we want to see small business grow. And to that point, I'm going to drop two things right now. There's an email address, coj.businessbanking@standardbank.co.za. That's coj.businessbanking@standardbank.co.za, or in Joburg 011 881 7515. 011 881 7515. That's Enterprise Direct. I actually tried it myself because I didn't want to set you up with like an 086 call center number. They answered immediately. They were efficient. They knew everything. And I was super impressed myself. We're a big organization. People phone me and say, can you give me that person? I want to remind them we have 55,000 people in organizations. It's enormous. But, I was super impressed with my experience. And, again, I hope you will be too.
Wonderful stuff, Clive. I think that's really wonderful. And thank you for your belief and also your encouragement. Orit, if we had to look at you and your empire, first of all, I want you to give advice to every person who has a talent that wants to move towards the light, use it for good, and help other people, and also help their families and themselves. Please tell us and give us some advice and encouragement.
Just start. Don't wait for the perfect case scenario. Just go there, sit tonight with a notebook and a pen and plan it. And tomorrow morning, just start and take the first step. Because even like deep into the business, like today I sat with my PA and I feel very overwhelmed with the new change. I said, right, let's put 3 goals that I need to accomplish by next week. And that is the way, just small goals, small steps. And when you look back, every year, I'm so pleasantly surprised when I look at my goals for the year, because I set the goals and then I put them away. And it's like a personal thing. It's not like targets I need to meet. That's a separate. thing. And at the end of every single year, I pull it up, and none of them happened with massive big projects. It was just small steps, just start.
Mm. Where can we find your delicious treats? I salivate at the thought of anything baked where I'm sitting in my office, kids asleep. All I want is a cup of tea. Where can we find you, Orit?
So right now in Joburg, we in the kosher world, the Moishies, Checkers, we are at Linksfield, Bluebird, Belfer Park. We're Pick and Pay Outspan and Thraps for now. And then if you're in Umhlanga, we're at Pick and Pay Umhlanga. And if you're in Cape Town, we are at Spa Sea Point. We also at Spa Norwood in Joburg.
I am very inspired by what you've created. And from one woman to another, I want to say that you're an inspiration and that your story is remarkable. And we can just learn so much. By the way, that Spa and Sea Point is an incredible spa. You've got so many cool things. But thank you so much for your time. Clive, thank you for your insights. We really appreciate your time, and all the best for the rest of 2021 and in this new year. It's exciting, and we will keep our lights shining and move towards the light. Even in darkness, we can see light. You see, look at Orit and look at Clive. They're looking towards the light for sure. We really appreciate your time. Hey, Chaya.
Yes. Thank you both very, very much for the advice you've given us all tonight. Orit for the solid, great advice on how to go about starting a business from home. And Clive for the very essential information needed in order to get assistance in starting the business from the bank in these difficult times. Ilana, as always, thank you for just being the incredible you that you are. Your questions are just perfect in order for us to understand everything we need to understand. Thank you all for listening, and have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye. Thank you.